Yo, what's up, family? It's Omar, and as always, I'm sending you love and peace. Hope you're doing well, beautiful people. In this video, I'm going to be telling you the truth about how the world really operates and works. And I'm also going to be telling you about how this world and reality that we live in is all really just a stage, a one big giant play that is perfectly set up and scripted, ranging from politics, economics, world events, and even sports. I'm also going to be telling you about how myself, as well as hundreds, if not thousands of people around the world, have been able to successfully predict the last few NFL Super Bowls, the last few NBA championships, the last few outcomes of many different sports, and how we're able to do so at a high rate successfully over time, right? I don't gamble, but if you do, there are hundreds and thousands of people making a lot of money with this information. So I promise you want to stick around and maybe at least hear me out. With that being said, I want to set the premise for this video by saying that this video is not for everybody. If you're a person who's judgmental, if you're a person who's closed and narrow-minded, if you're a person who's unable to see the big picture, if you're a person who is easily swayed either way, then maybe this video is not for you. However, if you're a person who is a critical thinker, if you're a person who is who thinks for themselves, who is able to get out the box and think, if you're a person who is open to perspectives, then this video is definitely for you. If you're curious, or also if you've been kind of going through a process or a journey of awakening, right? You've been waking up to different truths, waking up to the fact that maybe the world and reality that we're living in is not everything that we've been told. This video is definitely for you if you feel like you've been living in a simulation, right? So stick around to the end of this video. I promise I'm going to reveal some information that's just kind of mind-boggling and earth-shattering for some of you. It definitely was for me. This is a process that has taken years and years and years for myself, and I've done a lot of research, and I have a lot of notes. So if you see me looking down, I'm just trying to read my notes because I have a lot of bulletins of what I want to bring up. Let's get right into it. So first, I want to take you back to not origin story, because we all have a different origin story, but I think we can all, maybe not all also, but we can agree that there's definitely a positive, good, loving, sustaining, abundant life force and entity. There's also the opposite, a polar opposite, a destructive, malicious, dark, restrictive force, an entity being evil, right? Good and evil. And this is ultimately the war that has existed since the beginning of time and that will exist until the end of time. And everything that we're going through is really just going back and forth between that good and evil, push pull. However, a lot of people are starting to notice that the world around us is mostly starting to now deviate into that dark side, right? Again, you want to stick around and listen to everything that I present before you formulate an opinion, please, because if you just take pieces of what I'm saying, it might not all make sense. It's kind of like, knowing different letters of the alphabet, but you kind of got to know that there's 26 letters to know the full alphabet, right? So allow me to present the alphabet for you. I'm going to take you to school. Anyways, so with that being said, I also want to add the fact that you might know this or not know this, but there are laws and principles that govern this universe. There is a certain foundation that everything is running on, that's sustaining everything, right? There's always people being born, there's always life, there's always people dying, there's always plants dying, everything has a cycle. Everything is perfect in essence, right? If the sun was a little bit closer, if it was a little bit further, we would not be able to live on this planet. The fact that we are 70 to 80% water, our cells are 70 to 80% water, the earth is 70 to 80% water, right? All these things are not coincidences. But with that being said, these laws and principles I'm talking about are universally true, meaning they're not something that you can turn on and turn off. They're something that it's always on, just like gravity, right? And these are maybe the law of attraction, the law of vibration, the law of rhythm, the law of reciprocity, the law of compensation, the law of the principle of duality, polarity, right? All these different things are different principles and laws, and I can make separate videos about all those things, but go do your own research And if you want to someday consider yourself a little bit more enlightened, you should definitely, pick up and at least try to learn these things or look into them and make up your own mind. With that being said, there are small groups of people who have learned how to use these principles and laws to their advantage, to create a life that they love, that they enjoy living in. And they are good people, and they're sharing, they share, they care, they're loving, they're good people there's a lot of amazing people doing a lot of great things in this world. However, there is also a very small percentage of people, mostly sick, twisted men, who have figured out over time, this is years, thousands of years in the making, how to kind of control, manipulate, and use these principles and laws of reality to govern people, to control people, and to manipulate reality into a way that favors them and their agendas, right? Whatever you want to call them, you're probably wrong about it, because there are so many different groups that are in charge and in control, and some of them work together, some of them don't work together, some of them are under each other like umbrellas, right? So whatever you want to call them doesn't really matter. That's, again, you got to do your own research to come to that conclusion for yourself. However, once you understand this, you kind of start to see it everywhere around you. So when it comes to reality, something that I want to explain is we're all living in our own reality. It sounds crazy and cliche when you hear that from people. However, it's the truth. Your version of reality that you're living in is very different than the reality that I live in, right? And the reality that we live in is very different than the reality of a kid who lives in Ethiopia or somebody who lives in China. What is good and bad in China is probably not the same good and bad here in the United States, and vice versa, right? So we're all living in different versions of reality. If you're a person who maybe has never tried drawing, you've never tried playing a musical instrument, you've never tried doing any kind of arts, and maybe one time in school you had a project and you sucked at it, you then started to label yourself as not being artistic or not being creative, right? I was one of these people, and I'm just, I wish I could play music, but I'm not creative, I'm not artistic. Oh, I wish I could draw and paint, but I'm not artistic, I'm not creative. It's only the fact that I repeat that narrative and confirm that to myself over and over again, which is making that true. However, if I allowed myself to practice, to learn, to get a tutor, to get a mentor, to pay for classes, I would probably be able to advance my skills as an artistic, creative person and be able to play music, write, draw, paint. You get the idea. The point I'm trying to get at is that the reality you live in is only real because you're making it real. It's a lot of things are not as they seem. They're just our perception of how we think they seem. Right? I know it's kind of hard to digest, but stick with me. With that being said, there are people who have figured out how to manipulate reality with using these principles and these laws. And they take advantage of the fact that most of us don't know this information, don't have access to this information, and they're also all the places that we can turn to receive information are also being controlled and manipulated, right? Leaving us without much ability to get this information unless we really put in a lot of hours and hard work, like I have in the last 10 years of my life. Now let's get into the good stuff. I want to talk to you about something called Gematria. Gematria is essentially the science of attributing a number to a letter, right? So there's the natural, normal, ordinal way, which is A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, so on and so forth. And then you can go in reverse, and then there is the Hebrew version forward, and then there's the Hebrew version reverse. That's 4 different ciphers, but there's many different ciphers. So Gematria is considered to be the geometry of words, right? Those of you who have kind of, again, wakened up to certain things know that there's a lot of power in words, in voice, and sound, and what we're saying, right? In the Bible, it says that God said, and then it was. God said, let there be light, and then it was light, right? So God was creating through his voice. Albert Einstein was the one, I believe, who said math is the language of the universe. And Islam, right, and all these religions and belief systems, there's a lot of correlation between words, language, and mathematics, and how they kind of go together to create reality. Again, stick with me. And it's believed that there is a lot of similar attributes, similarities, or weight in the world in reality when names or words or phrases have the same numbers attributed to them, right? So, for example, the word God, G has a certain number that it equals, O has a certain number that it equals, D has a certain number that it equals, has the same number as the word faith. Faith has a certain F A I. You get the point. God and faith have the same number correlation, right? So this is kind of complex, and there is another channel that I want to guide you to. His channel is Gematria Effects. He has a Gematria Effects sports page and a Gematria Effects news page. You should definitely go check his stuff out and subscribe, because he's able to really get into detail and explain all of this stuff a lot better than I am. But essentially, there are people who practice the Kabbalah who use this information and have this information and believe that the world is ran and created and operated with numbers and letters. And English is what's known to be a bastard language, because English was created and invented way later on and is made up of a bunch of different languages: Latin, Germanic, right, British, French words. It's made up of a bunch of different words that come from a bunch of different origins. With that being said, once you open yourself up to this information and dive deep and learn, you kind of start to see the same patterns, the same numbers, the same words, the same phrases being thrown at us in reality in our day-to-day lives over and over and over again. And there are people who dedicate a lot of their time to figuring these patterns out, reading these patterns, and able to point out exactly what's going on in the world and even predict what's going to happen ahead of time. So I want to give you examples of this. So the moon has a 19-year lunar cycle, also known as the Metonic cycle. So every 19 years, you'll fall on the same solar calendar date, right? The same date. So, for example, the same day that it was today, 19 years ago, would have been the same exact day, right? I hope that makes sense. With that being said, in 2020, last year, we had something called something 19, right? The number 19 is important because, again, the 19 for the lunar cycle and many different other reasons. But last year we had 19, which was the war against germs. If you go back 19 years before that, 2001, we had the war against terrorism, which was done by 19 hijackers, right? And if you go 19 years before that, in 82, we had the war on drugs. So every 19 years, we're living in a cycle, a ritual that's going on every 19 years, whether we know it or not. And this is how they're able to push agendas over time, because you can't get a group of people to change or do something or be manipulated overnight or from day to day, because we don't adapt well to quick changes. But when you change and force change over time, you can really steer a whole population, if not a whole world, into a specific direction, right? That's already some pretty crazy information if you ask me. If you haven't already, please like this video. I don't care about likes, but I do care about getting the video out to more people. And the algorithm does help when you like the video. Let's get into it. So going back to another world event, 19 years ago, well, now it's not 19 years ago anymore, but in 2001, 9/11 happened. 9/11 is also the number that we call for emergencies. What are the chances that on the date of the number for emergency, we have a national emergency, right? Hope that makes sense. But a lot of people don't know this. Other than the World Trade Centers, there was a third building that fell and collapsed, and this was called Building 7, Building Number 7. A lot of people don't know this. If you don't believe me, go check it out and look it up. But anyways, Building Number 7 fell. Number 7 is what we're going to talk about right now. Another plane hit the Pentagon, which was Flight 77. So Flight 77 hit the Pentagon on that day. And if you look this up, you can Google this also. The Pentagon is 77 feet tall. The Pentagon also has 7 floors. And the flight took off at 8:20. You can fact check me and Google this. The flight took off at 8:20 and reportedly hit the building at 9:37 a.m., which is 77 minutes. So Flight 77 took 77 minutes to hit a building that has 7 floors and is 77 feet tall. What are the chances and the odds of that, first of all? Now let's look into it even more. So now if you take if you do the numerical value for these words, September 11th equals 77. World Trade Center, typed in, right? World Trade Center equals 77. Twin Tower collapse also equals 77. Crazy. And again, you can fact check me. You can Google and look up Gematria calculator. Gematria calculator. And you'll be able to put in your name, any name you want, any word you want, and it'll give you the numerical value for it. So, again, what are the odds and chances of that? That's something that a lot of people now kind of already know was staged and fabricated and all of that stuff. So I don't want to really get into all that. And I'm also kind of scared of, what videos are acceptable on here and not. So I'm not going to get into all of that. But now let's get into sports. NBA is what I'm going to start off with. I grew up a basketball fan. I played basketball for like 10 years of my life. I enjoyed it. I loved it. And I was a huge fan of Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was like my favorite player, and not only my favorite player, but somebody that I genuinely looked up to as far as work ethic and hustling and, giving your all to better yourself in whatever it is that you love and care about. So this is why I'm really, really passionate about this topic specifically. But just interesting facts. Again, you can Google and fact check me on this. Kobe Bryant equals 113. Michael Jordan equals 113. The National Basketball Association equals 113. So the two players who are known as the greatest, or amongst the greatest, and the faces of the league for so long, also have the same numerical value as the National Basketball Association. That's maybe not too impressive, too crazy. But this is where it gets really, really interesting. And it's not fun for me to talk about because I never really processed all this. It's actually more on sad. But let's get into this information. So, and again, you can YouTube this stuff, Google it, and fact check me. I want you to see this for yourself. Kobe Bryant made his last shot. His last game he played against Utah Jazz. He scored 60 points, I believe, against the Utah Jazz on his final game ever, right? His last shot that he made, his last actual bucket, was over a player named Trey Lyles, wearing jersey number 41. Jersey number 41, that's important. He then afterwards played the game, finished his game with 60 points, and checked out of the game. He was waving to all the fans. Everybody's cheering, going crazy. He checked out of the game with exactly 4.1 seconds left. Another 41. Then afterwards, this is where it gets really, really crazy and interesting. The Lakers last year, right, went on a whole run. It was crazy, right? The whole season was weird. It ended for a brief period of time. They stopped the NBA because of all the cases that were happening. Something else I want to bring up is there was a lot of attention in the media about Kobe Bryant being a girl dad, right? That was like the big thing they wanted to hone in on, the fact that he was a girl dad. Because obviously he's lost his daughter. And he was, a great father to his daughters and only had daughters. But anyways, beyond the point. So the Lakers season stopped, as well as everybody else in the NBA stopped for a short period of time when all the cases were going up. They the season went back to a start, and the final championship was won. The Lakers actually won the championship, right, with LeBron James leading. The Lakers won the championship on a date that can be written 10/11/2020, right? So October 11, 20. So 10/11/20, if you add those numbers up, it also equals 41. Kobe died at the age of 41, right? So this is a lot of 41s in one person's last game, last shot, last bucket, last exit, and then afterwards he loses his life. The day after, LeBron James passes his record for the most points scored in Philadelphia, where Kobe Bryant is originally from. And if you look this up, this is known in Philly, right? On their court, there was a snake that is cut off at the half. Essentially, a bunch of subliminal messaging to kind of tell us and let us know that Kobe was going to exit, right? Mamba out. I can make a whole video just on that topic specifically and how it relates to everything else that's been going on in the world, and really crazy, but I don't want to get into that rabbit hole right now. So let's keep it going. NBA, the letter N equals 14, the letter B equals 2, and the letter A equals 1. 14 plus 2 plus 1 equals 17. 17 is a very, very important number for the Jesuits and for the Freemasons for many, many different reasons. There's a lot of occult meaning behind the number 17. But this is where it gets really interesting and exciting, and kind of how a lot of us were able to predict that LeBron James and the Lakers were going to win last year's NBA season. And that was predicted 2 years ago when he signed. I'm going to explain why. So Ohio is the 17th state of the United States. Check me. Cleveland Cavaliers became, in 1970, I believe, the Cleveland Cavaliers became the 17th team to join the NBA. Also, another fun fact. LeBron James signed with the Lakers on July 1st. A date that around the world can be written 1/7, 17, right? And in LeBron's 17th season, he was able to win the Lakers' 17th championship on their 71st season. 17 and 71 are just mirroring each other, right? So if that's not crazy, I don't know what is, man. So again, LeBron James, who is from Ohio, Akron, Ohio, the 17th state, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the 17th team to join the NBA. LeBron James signs with the Lakers in 2018 on a date that can be written 1/7, 17. And in his 17th year, he won the Lakers' 17th championship in their 71st season. Kind of crazy if you ask me. This is also where it gets really interesting and crazy. Going back to the number 41 that we kept saying that's tied into Kobe, they made a huge deal about the fact that the Lakers were undefeated going into playing Miami for the finals. The Lakers were undefeated wearing the Mamba jerseys. They were 4-0 wearing the Mamba jerseys. And then they lost in Game 5 to the Miami Heat and never wore the Black Mamba jersey again. They didn't wear them for Game 6. Making their record with the Black Mamba jersey 4-1, 41, right? Another hint and wink to the Kobe Bryant. Also, the Lakers won the championship the day before, won the championship on Father-Daughter Day. Yeah, it was National Father-Daughter Day. You can Google this, look this up. National Father Day, and LeBron James posted a picture of his daughter, and it was this big deal that it was National Father Day, and the Lakers won the championship for Kobe, who was a girl dad. Again, perfectly scripted. And also, for those of you who know basketball and who have been watching as sports fans for quite a while, quite some time, and remember, when Kobe went to win his 4th championship, this was in 2009. Kobe went to win his 4th championship. And in the Western Conference semifinals, they played against the Houston Rockets and beat them. and then they played in the Western Conference Finals against Denver Nuggets and beat them, and then played against the Orlando Magic and won the championship. So again, just to recap, Kobe Bryant faced the Houston Rockets in the semifinals, in the Western Conference semifinals. Then he faced the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference finals, and then played in Orlando for the finals and got his fourth championship. Now let's fast forward to last year. LeBron James with the Lakers chasing his fourth ring played against the Houston Rockets in the Western Conference semifinals. Then they played the Nuggets in the Western Conference finals, and then they played the championship in Orlando in the bubble again in Orlando, winning his fourth championship. You catching the drift? It's just crazy how people think this stuff is all just randomly made up and stuff. Um, Again, some people might think, well, how is this possible? How does this work? Right? This got to just be coincidences. It might be to somebody who doesn't know anything about anything. But I promise, if you just watch a few videos on Gematria Effect news, or you just learn the information, the basics, and then just go through your life, you can't help but to see the same numbers show up again and again and again, the same dates, the same letters, the same things. And I'm going to present some more information to show you how crazy this stuff is. But now let's leave basketball for a minute and let's get into the Super Bowl. This one is where it gets really crazy. So I want to talk specifically about the last Super Bowl that just happened a weekend ago, Super Bowl 55. I'm not even going to get to the fact that there's so many rituals that happened and there was so much significance to the number 55. That's a whole other topic. Again, that guy who I just recommended talks about that. But the Super Bowl date was played on 2/7/27. We had the battle of the quarterbacks, right? This was the battle of the quarterbacks. It was the guy who's been in the league for 2 decades, dominating, and who was promoted as the GOAT, the greatest of all time, right? The best QB to ever do it, going in to win his 7th title, versus the new face of what quarterbacks are, the new face of the league, Patrick Mahomes, who is most likely also going to dominate for at least a decade. How do we know that? Because he became the first player to sign a 10-year deal. That's unheard of in the NFL. Anyways, a quarterback signing a 10-year deal. So we know for the next 10 years at least, he's going to be up there and he's going to be the face of the league. So it was kind of like the passing of the torch, if you will. The QB, who's the older guy who's been dominating for the last 20 years, passing the torch to the new QB who's going to be dominating for the next 10 to 20 years, right? And so the date of the Super Bowl was 2/7. Peyton Manning, I'm tripping. Tom Brady wears jersey number 12, and Patrick Mahomes wears jersey number 15. 15 plus 12 equals 27, right? So the two quarterbacks equal the date of the Super Bowl. There's so many other number 27s that are relevant, but I don't want to get into all of that. What I do want to get into is Tom Brady himself, because this Super Bowl was all a huge ritual and tribute for him, right? So again, the whole week leading up to it and the whole month even of the playoffs and the whole weekend, it was, is Tom Brady the GOAT? Is he going to go down as the greatest of all time? And also, talking about how he was going to pass Michael Jordan and have one more ring than Michael Jordan. Making him the greatest athlete even, supposedly, possibly. So Tom Brady is 43 years old. He was, he's 43 years old. They played in Florida. Florida equals 43. Champion equals 43. GOAT, GOAT equals 43. And Yale, YALE equals 43. The reason why Yale is important, I'm going to bring it all in and tie it all in a bit. But Yale is, first of all, where Walter Klemp, I believe his name is, was a Freemason, a Scottish Rite Freemason, who is credited for being the founder and creator of football, of American football, and making up a bunch of the rules and plays and all of that stuff. So it's football started, or originally started as we know it, American football at Yale University. And I'm going to talk more about Yale and why it's important and all of this stuff. Going back to the metonic cycle, how everything comes back around and we repeat history over and over again. Fun fact, the Bills, the Buffalo Bills, and the Kansas City Chiefs play against each other every 27 years in the AFC Championship. I believe they just played in the AFC Championship this past month, but every 27 years they do so. It's a reference to the fact that, for those of you who know, Buffalo Bill is actually a nickname for a cowboy who established himself and stayed for a while in near Kansas. He stayed in Kansas for a while. He set up shop in Kansas, stayed there for a while, and fought against, the who was against the Indians, the Chiefs. So they play on history over and over again. They do these rituals cyclically over and over. So every 27 years, as I mentioned the number 27 earlier, the Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills play against each other. That's just fun fact that I'm throwing in there. But the reason I was bringing that up is to explain how Yale is going to tie into the rest of this story. So we talked about all the number 43s. Now we're going to get into number 73. This is really, really crazy. Number 73. So Tom Brady came into this postseason having 73 touchdowns. You can Google and fact check me. In the 2021 playoffs, Tom Brady came into the Super Bowl with exactly 7 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. 7-3, 73. With in the first quarter, for those of you who watched the game, and you can go rewatch clips and stuff, in the first quarter, by the end, almost at the end of the first quarter, at 37 seconds, right, again, the mirroring, 73, 37 seconds, at 37 seconds, the Buccaneers scored a touchdown, bringing them a 7-3 lead. So the lead was 7-3, 73 at 37 seconds, the mirror and opposite of 73. Coincidences, right? For those of you who also don't know this, every single year before the Super Bowl, there is a predictive game in college basketball, in the NCAA basketball. There's always a game the night before, kind of giving a hint or an inkling of who's going to win the next year. One of the most obvious and craziest examples of this was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I believe, in 2019. There was the Rams who played against the Patriots in basketball, college basketball. I forgot what the exact schools were, but you can go look up. It was the Rams versus the Patriots, and they even joked about it, the announcers saying, is this a hint of tomorrow's Super Bowl and what's going to happen tomorrow? And sure enough, it was, because the Patriots won. But yeah, I believe that was 2019. So let's go back to 73 and NCAA basketball. The night before, we knew the guy, Gematria Effects, I forget what his name is, but he predicted 2 to 3 weeks before this even happened and told us to watch out for the Texas Tech game. Texas Tech, because that's the school where Patrick Mahomes went to. So you would think that because Texas Tech wins, that Patrick Mahomes might win. But again, it's about the numbers. The numbers are what rule and control everything. So the Texas Tech team won with a score of 73-69. They had 73 points. Again, Tom Brady. So the numbers are representing Tom Brady, even though the school is Patrick Mahomes' school. So again, Tom Brady versus Mahomes, but Tom Brady wins. You can Google this. The weekend right before Super Bowl, there was the WWE Royal Rumble. And the WrestleMania and WWE is very tied into the NFL because, again, they're all giant scripts and they all go together. But Edge was the guy who won the Royal Rumble. And he was being promoted and talked about all week and even that night about how he was the old man out of the group. And how he was going to be the old guy and how he was the old man of the competition. And he ended up winning the Royal Rumble. Edge was born in 73. They also did the Royal Rumble in Tampa Bay, Florida, where the Buccaneers play. Yale grad. Okay, this is where it gets really crazy and dark. So this is where a lot of people are not interested in this stuff because the truth is sometimes ugly. But part of the manipulation of reality is these people do blood sacrifices, right? This is, again, maybe a little bit too much for people to grasp. Some people might have just came to this video because of the sports and stuff, but the small group of people we talked about before who control the world and manipulate reality, they have put themselves into positions where they are able to bring up the status of certain people and allow certain people to succeed and become wealthy and rich. And they also have the power and ability to bring people's statuses down and make people poor and suffer and be in prison, go to jail, look horrible, defame them. And worst scenario is they pay the ultimate price, which is their life. And when this happens, it's usually done by the numbers. There's a very famous rock band from back in the day, I believe like the 70s and 80s, called The Police, and you can go look. They have a song called Murder by Numbers, and it explains to you Gematria, that it's as easy as A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, right? And it explains to you how death comes in threes. But very famous band, The Police, talks about this Gematria. There's also Slipknot that has a song, I believe, called Gematria, explaining this stuff also. There's very famous, incredible people within these industries who have talked about this stuff. Most people just don't want to listen again. But anyways, so they have the ability to help people, right, become successful, which is known as selling your soul. And once you've sold your soul, essentially you belong to them, right? Which is why a lot of these celebrities, a lot of the Hollywood, life and all of that stuff, they all intermingle and stay within each other. It's like one giant club and we're not invited, right? There's a reason why you only see the same models over and over again in every runway and every photo shoot and every catalog. You always see the same actors in every movie and every Netflix show, every series that comes out and all that stuff. They always marry within each other. They always date within each other. Like if I was a successful, rich Hollywood actor or celebrity or artist or whatever it was, I would want to date like the most low-key, chill girl. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of other people just like me, somebody who's real, who's not in that world that I'm in. But instead, they all date only people who are within the world that they live in. Because again, it's one giant club. And you can't just bring anybody into this club, right? People have to get vetted. People have to be introduced. They have to be accepted. But anyways, with that being said, that's also why a lot of these people suffer from depression, anxiety, go crazy. They're on pills, they're on drugs, they're addicted to alcohol. And that's because they know what they're doing and they can't live with themselves. But anyways, ritual sacrifices have been part of our history as humans since the very beginning, and it probably will continue to be until the end. And that's the sad, sucky, twisted part that we don't want to talk about. And going back to Kobe Bryant, like I could make a whole video on that, but again, it's just crazy stuff. But with this being said, now I want to talk about Yale and how it all ties in and all comes together, and WrestleMania and WWE. So go Google WrestleMania 37, which is going to take place April 10th. In Florida again, I believe, and look at the logo. Just look up, Google logo WrestleMania 37, and you'll see that it looks exactly like the logo of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? The skull and bones with the red in the back. The Skull and Bones is a secret society that started and that exists at Yale University. George Bush was one of the most famous Skull and Bone members, and he's even talked about this openly. It's not a secret, right? Excuse me. When Tom Brady first came into the league and was in the league, George W. Bush was president. George W. Bush was going back to the number 43 that I was talking about earlier. George W. Bush was the 43rd president. And when he was waiting to become president, the last state that they were waiting on, the decision-making state, was Florida, 43 also, right? And George W. Bush is a member of the Skull and Bone Society at Yale University, where football started, right? And Tom Brady is now going to be cemented as the GOAT, the greatest of all time, at Yale University. But the GOAT, as much as we'd like to just think that, yeah, it stands for the greatest of all time, there's a lot of symbolism behind the GOAT, right? The GOAT is half of Baphomet. Baphomet is the devil, Satan, whatever you want to call it, who is half GOAT. and there's a lot of goat sacrifices, goat blood, goat drinking, sex, all this crazy stuff when it comes to witchcraft and black magic and all this stuff. I don't want to get into all of that, but the goat has a lot of significance um, with the Church of Satan. um, which is also why you're seeing all these artists, rappers calling themselves the GOAT, making their pictures, on their profile, their cover album art, all goat, 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 three-headed goat, one-headed goat, two-headed goats, right? It's for a reason. Nothing is just random, right? There was a time when you looked at rap and rappers and hip hop, and it stood for speaking truth, and people, used to put their fist up in the air. Now, they all do the devil horns. I thought that used to be only for rock, right? But now all the rappers are even doing this, right? There's a reason behind all of this stuff. There's a reason why why we switched from a lot of things to why we do them the way we do them now. Anyways, going back to Yale football and all this stuff, you can Google this and look it up. There was a Yale grad who was murdered, an Asian man, innocent man, and it's still an unsolved mystery for no apparent reason. He was murdered the night before the Super Bowl in Goatville near Yale. So there's a lot of students on campus at Yale, and there's a town, a neighborhood right next to Yale University where a lot of these students live called Goatville. And so if you just Google Yale grad or you Google murder Goatville, you'll see all these articles pop up, and you'll see that I'm not making this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. It's crazy. So Yale grad went to Yale, murdered in Goatville for the goat. If you look up Yale grad, which they kept promoting, all the headlines just said Yale grad, Yale grad. Yale grad equals 73. So 73 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, seven touchdowns, 3 interceptions, also 73. With 37 seconds in the first quarter, they go up 7-3, 73 again. The Texas Tech team, where Patrick Mahomes played the night before, scored and won the game with 73 points. Tribute to Tom Brady. Edge was born in 73, won the Royal Rumble. WrestleMania is being promoted as the Buccaneer symbol, the skull and bone symbol. Yale grad murdered in Goatville, right? And then afterwards, the Yale grad equals 73. And if you also Google and look this up, I think it was on ESPN, but I have a screenshot of it. The Super Bowl weather on the day, on the actual game, they told us the Super Bowl weather was 73 degrees. Chances are it probably wasn't, but they put these numbers everywhere. A number that shows you a good example of this and how it works is a movie called Focus with Will Smith. It shows you that if you make people subconsciously see a number everywhere and accept a number everywhere, it'll affect, what they think about when it comes to that number and how they act. Great movie, Focus. Go watch it. Now let's get into the number 7. Again, just like earlier, when Tom Brady first came into the league, it was George W. Bush. And with George W. Bush, we know what happened on that date we talked about earlier and all the regarding all the sevens, right? So Tom Brady was born in 77. He got his 7th ring. He won his 7th ring. The game was also played on the 7th, like we talked about. He was on a 7-game winning streak. They talked about that, how coming into the Super Bowl, he was on a 7-game winning streak. This is also really crazy and funny. The founder of Make-A-Wish Foundation, right? His name is Frank Shankwitz, the founder of Make-A-Wish Foundation. He died at 77 years old. The reason why it's funny and crazy is because if you look it up and Google it now, you'll see that he died January 24th, way before the Super Bowl. But they didn't show it on the news. They didn't put it in any publications. They didn't put it anywhere until the night of the Super Bowl. So when Super Bowl was over and the news came on, they talked about how great Tom Brady was and how he won his 7th championship and all the 777s and all that stuff and promoted that. And then it was just casually like, oh yeah, the Make-A-Wish Foundation guy died at 77 years old. Why would they sit on that story for 2 weeks when they could have just promoted it, when he actually passed away? But they wait to make these numbers tie in together, to make you see the same numbers over and over again. Anyways, Also, another number seven that was funny and just random, just to show you how stupid. You might think this is stupid, crazy, and like makes no sense, and I'm just pulling up random numbers out of my ass. But this is how they do it. That's what they want you to believe. They want you to scoff and laugh it off. But this one was actually really funny. The Weeknd, right, the artist who performed the halftime show, don't even want to get into how the halftime show was so satanic and ritualistic and occultic. That's for you to kind of figure out for yourself. But even I'm sorry if you're a fan of his, but the Weeknd, it was all over headlines and posted on Instagram, Twitter, and everything that reportedly the Weeknd spent $7 million of his own money out of pocket for his halftime show. Again, another seven. And if you think that's just funny random coincidences, Google and fact check me on this. Tom Brady signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on March 20th, 2020. And The Weeknd released his last album on March 20th, 2020. So the football player, the artist release and sign their news and project at the same time and then perform at the Super Bowl together at the same time. Everything is tied in: music, politics, economics, world events. I know it's kind of hard to believe and understand, but believe me, it is. Um, the other thing I want to remind you folks who are really so passionate about these sports and act like your whole lives depend on it is the channels that mostly display these games, right, are ESPN. And ESPN's always talking about this and this rival and this and giving you all these statistics and all this knowledge on each player and breaking down all the play-by-plays and all that stuff. ESPN is owned by the Walt Disney Company, which are known as the best storytellers. So there's a reason why this team always plays this team and this always happens this way. And you hear the comeback stories and the underdogs. Everything is scripted in a way to sell, to make money, right? The Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady, the battle of the quarterbacks, that couldn't have been scripted any better because it was, right? Kobe Bryant's exiting and all that stuff couldn't have been any scripted better because it was. Also, if you notice with the Super Bowl, there's always a red versus blue team, meaning like there's always a conservative state or city playing versus a liberal state or city playing. It's all subconscious. This is this is subconscious. This is mind warfare. This war is not taking place physically. Right, this war is taking place up here because we've adapted through time. There was a time when we had to work and we were living in a physical world. Now we've moved into the age of information. And so the way to win this war is not with weapons anymore, but it's with this, right? By withholding information, by changing information, by presenting false information. And again, this might just seem like kind of a long rant, and I'm sorry if it is that way, but I hope that this provides value and that you're able to kind of connect dots for yourself. Um, there's a football player actually who played for the Chiefs. He was one of the best at his time. Larry Johnson. He was a very famous running back who played for the Chiefs actually, and he talks a lot about this. And he's a truth seeker and a truth teller, and he's woke as hell. And he talks about how all this stuff is really happening, and he's reaffirming everything that I'm saying. And he explains how they're able to have this happen without it really being so obvious. So he talks about the fact that in football, right, it's always the coaches of their team, of both teams, communicating with headsets and everything. And then the quarterback is the only one that is relaying messages to the rest of the team, who's actually talking to the coaches. So there's a reason why the quarterback is always the star of the show, right? And and all the quarterbacks and team coaching are talking within each other and with each other and the referees, but all the other players and all the other staff members are out of the loop. So there's a few people who know what's really going on, and there's a few people, and the rest of the people have no idea what's going on. So by changing the plays, every actual play, right? Every play, it's live action. You change the play, there's audibles, there's this, there's that. The players have no idea what's going on, so there's real raw emotions, real raw reactions because they're outside of the loop, versus the quarterbacks know exactly what's happening and what's taking place, right? And again, he talks about how it's like exclusively like gangs, right? That there's certain players, and you see them with certain coaches and certain people and their high power positions, and over again getting invited to everything, and then it's kind of like the rest of the league is just left out, right? There's hundreds of players that you never even hear of, no matter how great they're performing, but then there is the same top 10, 15, 20 NFL players, NBA players, whatever, that are always being pushed down our faces. Why? Because they're actors at the end of the day, right? They get endorsements, sponsorships. They're here to present an image. I'm kind of losing my words here, but I hope that you're getting the big picture. Another one that I kind of just wanted to throw in here as just random fun facts that might blow your mind away is the Chadwick Boseman passing, which was also another, ritual. But Chadwick Boseman died on August 28th, 2020. You can Google this and fact check me. I really want you to. Jackie Robinson Day has always been April 15th. It's standardized every year. Jackie Robinson Day is April 15th. But for some reason last year, they changed that to August 28th. Chadwick Boseman played Jackie Robinson, right? So what are the odds and chances that the man who plays Jackie Robinson dies on National Jackie Robinson Day, right? Furthermore, there's a man named Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby is one of the most famous writers, drawers, artists, and editors for all of the famous comic books. But he's also known for being the man who created the Black Panther. His birthday is August 28th. So what are the chances that the man who played Black Panther dies on the birthday of the man who created Black Panther? So now tie all of that in together. For real, think about it. Think about it critically. What are the odds and chances that the man who played Jackie Robinson dies on National Jackie Robinson Day, which also happens to be the birthday of Jack Kirby, the man who invented Black Panther, and he also played Black Panther? Furthermore, going back to the Gematria and numerical values, Chadwick Boseman, if you type in Chadwick Boseman into the Gematria calculator, equals 59. They tell us that he died of colon cancer. Colon cancer, if you type that in, equals 59 also. They have the same numerical value. So again, that's pretty much all I have from my notes, and this has already been a way longer video than I expected it to be. But just to wrap up, guys, we're living in a sick, twisted world where there are very few people controlling and manipulating reality as we know it. If you're interested and haven't watched these movies already, there's The Truman Show, there is The Matrix 1, 2, and 3, there's Mad Max. As far as shows go, there is Scandal, there's House of Cards, there's The Blacklist. Blacklist, really, really good show. Cartoons, there's Soul or Souls, the one that just came out. Bug's Life. These are all movies and shows that are worth watching, where you'll see that they all have the same underlying message. Oh, I forgot Star Wars, right? Star Wars, Lord of the Ring, Hobbit, they all have the same thing, good versus evil, and the same underlying principle, which is that there is a few group of people who are evil, who are manipulating, controlling all the rest of the population, right? Anyways, I hope this video has been not only just provocative, but interesting, informative, and hopefully empowers you to kind of do your own research and learn the truth for yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please watch it. Please give it a thumbs up. Please share it with somebody that you love and care about, or somebody that might be into the truth, or maybe somebody who doesn't believe in this whatsoever. Anyways, I'm sending you love and peace.